So imagine a company being run on more than 100 different IT apps, software, like SaaS solutions, each one having its own approach to identity, permissions, whether it is person-based or group-based, each user having different user identifiers in different systems. So resolving this to understand who is Dimitri and how is Dimitri represented in different pieces of software, what is the information, what is the data Dimitri should be allowed to see and what shouldn't be provided to Dimitri. Understanding this in real time, this is really the core of what Glean brings to the table.
Hi, my name is Dimitri Panici, and I'm a content creator, agency owner, and AI enthusiast. You're listening to the AI Agents Podcast, brought to you by Jotform, and featuring our very own CEO and founder, Ida Tank. This is the show where artificial intelligence meets innovation, productivity, and the tools shaping the future of work. Enjoy the show. Hello there, my name is Dimitri, and welcome back to another episode of the AI Agents Podcast. In this episode, we're talking to Emrecan Dogan, the head of product at Glean. How you doing, Emrecan?
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot for having me, Dimitri.
For sure. I'm doing good. You know, I always tell everyone I'm living the dream, and it's never a lie. Because, you know, when you're getting to interview cool products like yourself and those who are a part of cool products like yourself, doing stuff with AI and AI agents, I am living the dream. So just to kind of get things started, you have a pretty interesting background working at a lot of different companies. All of what I've seen, at least in the last like decade-ish, at pretty large and interesting companies most people would know. So for first and foremost, could you give us a little bit of background on who you are and kind of how you got to be working at Glean?
Yeah, would love to. Again, thanks for having me here. I'll kick it off. So this is Emrecan. I currently run the product org at Glean. So that is product management, design, data, and operations. I've been here for over 2 years now. But first and foremost, I'm an entrepreneur. Actually, the longest I have worked for like any company in my career is less than 4 years, about 4 years. And that was LinkedIn. And that was the reason was I sold my company to LinkedIn after running it for about 6 years.
Nice.
And actually, as a matter of fact, I also worked at Stripe for a couple of years. And while at Stripe, I actually stumbled upon an idea that I thought, hey, this is great enough that I will go back to being an entrepreneur again. I left. I started building my company for a few months. And it was going to be some sort of a Glean competitor without me knowing about Glean at all. So luckily, a venture capitalist I knew from my earlier founding years told me, hey, I will look into Glean if you were building something around this area. Thankfully, I discovered what Glean was doing at the time, and I got really scared about the amazing product the team was building. So I kind of folded my startup and reached out to Glean and said, hey, I can come in and build for you. And the rest, again, over the last 2 years and change, I've been here building the product for them.
That's really awesome. So how then, I guess if we can go back a little bit more on Glean side of things, how long is, just so everyone knows, could you give a little bit of a background on Glean, like its start and what it does?
Yeah, would love to. So Glean's history goes back about 6 years and change. And what I loved about Glean at the time was the team started by solving what I think as well, by solving the hardest part of the enterprise AI puzzle or problem. And it is finding and understanding company knowledge across every app, across every person, every office, every project, with a hybrid search engine and a very deep and fully autonomous knowledge graph. And with this, Glean was able to personalize the experience of finding the right answer while strictly enforcing permissions. So, and what was amazing about Glean's inception was they were quite contrarian about the problems to be solved, while these problems were not sexy, top of mind, or big markets to capture. And with that strong foundation, Glean was, I think, in stealth mode for over a year, building a singular solution, again, for enterprise search. And when Glean launched this product, it was an overnight, I think, product market fit with the first few customers, and these customers being very large enterprise grade players, not the startups or small businesses that we are used to hear about.
Okay, so I think in the context of what we've covered on this podcast, we haven't probably had a product like yours on here, which is obviously great. There's been a lot of really good growth and obviously investment in Glean over the last couple of years. I saw, if I'm not wrong, in June you guys secured another round of like Series F funding, if I'm not wrong. Right. Yep, so the company, the valuation keeps going up. It keeps doing better and better. I'm guessing, and I obviously looked into it, the reason behind a lot of that is the innovation you are pushing on the front of AI agents and AI assistants. Seems like, you're able to interconnect so many different aspects of the knowledge of a company with what you're mentioning. And I'm just curious, obviously as the head of product, you have a lot of insight into how it's being built. What are you doing on the AI agent and assistant front to really like push the boundaries of your industry?
Yep. Love it. So a few things maybe that distinguishes Glean from the rest, and I will go through maybe a few ideas, but please stop me if you want to dive into any,
absolutely. Yeah.
any one of these. So number one, from the get-go, from day one, we are built for the largest enterprises out there, right?
Sure. Okay.
So if you and we start a business tomorrow with two people, two founders, we will not need Glean. You and we will know everything about our startup. It's not like we'll need that smart AI companion or an agents that much. But if you think about scaling this company, all of a sudden you have 20 people, 200 people, 2,000 people, information bifurcation or asymmetry starts exploding. So it grows non-linearly. What a single person knows about how the company operates, what projects are most important, what the company is investing in different areas, how to make the right decisions, etc. These become exponentially more difficult. So Glean is built on an enterprise-grade stack when it comes to handling the scale of information. That's one. But second, maybe as importantly, if not more, is this whole aspect of governance and permissions. So imagine a company being run on more than 100 different IT apps, software, like SaaS solutions, each one having its own approach to identity, permissions, whether it is person-based or group-based, each user having different user identifiers in different systems. So resolving this to understand who is Dimitri and how is Dimitri represented in different pieces of software, such that when Dimitri wants to accomplish something, what is the information, what is the data Dimitri should be allowed to see and what shouldn't be provided to Dimitri. Understanding this in real time, reflecting all the changes happening in the underlying document permissions. This is really the core of what Glean brings to the table. And from that core, then we start building, okay, let's offer enterprise search so that with one UI, you can actually see everything the company has to offer that you are permitted to access. But then on top of it, then we build AI assistant where you are no longer finding documents or answers, but you are actually tapping into synthesis, or you are generating new content off of that search. And finally, the AI agents boom, where I think the pendulum swings from generating answers or getting answers to actually executing tasks and getting AI to do things for you end to end.
Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah.
No, you keep going. No, you're on a roll there. Keep going. What does that look like? What does that look like for executing things end to end?
Yeah. So there are I think two aspects that we should think about. One is every knowledge worker. They kind of have their own unique ways of doing things and being valuable to the company they work for. Like you and if we are tasked with the same function, let's say in marketing or product management, still the way we show up to work and then get things done, they will have some slight differences or major differences, right? So imagine the personal side of Glean to be like the following. Glean enables you to have an agent, or actually a set of agents, just like you would have direct reports. And then over time, they actually understand you better and better, how you idiosyncratically do things, how you respond back to emails or Slack messages that you receive, or when you are writing a strategy document or reacting to a Jira ticket, how you would approach solving that problem versus your colleague A or colleague B. And reflecting on all that richness, all that's like the full Dimitri you bring to work, Glean agents at a personal level start working in that way. So for the lack of a better framing, it is really your team of agents that gets trained with the way you work, so that over time, you actually rely less and less on your manual effort of doing things, and then you can put your own personal agents into work. So this is one major aspect of Glean, where we understand every employee deeper and deeper, how they do the work, and the team of agents that employee uses gets to do the work the way that employee does the work. Contrast that with what we call the departmental tasks or processes, right? So there are certain things in the modern enterprise where, regardless of how many employees you have in a given function, let's say sales or marketing, you want a singular common way of doing things. Like imagine releasing documentation or release notes about a new product launch. You don't want 100 different product managers to release notes in 100 different ways. You want a singular, uniform, high standard way of articulating what is being launched, what the launch date is, and how precise or concise the information is. So there is this whole aspect of departments or business units implementing a singular agent that every employee in that function can use in a consistent way hundreds of times every day. So that's the other aspect of Glean, where we power execs or department heads to build agents that can run for the entire company in a consistent way.
Okay, so this is probably the part where I ask, I mean, you have some companies who are out there, and there's different levels of companies that are watching and listening to this podcast. What kind of level of companies are you working with, like size-wise?
Yeah. We work across the gamut of all businesses, from SMB to enterprise. But maybe I'll take your question in the following sense. Where is the sweet spot of Glean? The larger the company, the more value they unlock with Glean. So another way of saying this is the revenue we are making, it is coming from not tens of thousands of customers, not even thousands of customers, but actually in the order of hundreds, right? So these are some of the most iconic businesses out there with hundreds of thousands of employees. And in many of these, Glean is deployed wall to wall. So all the employees within that company across geographies, functions, are using Glean on a daily basis.
Okay. So when somebody comes to Glean, are you, because this is what's interesting to me, is a lot of the companies that will be on the podcast, it's a mixed bag, whether it's like made for you solutions or custom built types of things. This seems to be in the realm of kind of hard to make it made for you, I'm sure, but maybe there's a mixture there. Could you kind of walk me through, because obviously you're pretty horizontal, right, from a product standpoint. So whether that's whatever industry, that's what that means, people, you can help them out. So is there any specific type of industry that you most find has found value in what you're doing at Glean, and how are you able to, if you're able to give any examples, kind of implement into their daily workflows?
Yeah, would love to. So I think you are spot on, by the way, on this, let's say, trade-off or tug-of-war between the larger the customer you go to, then the more custom or bespoke the solution might need to look like. But Glean happens to be in this, I will say, magical sweet spot where we get to build a very standard core product that many customers find value from day one, and it's very visceral value. They turn on Glean and then they start getting the value. I think one secret sauce there is this notion of what we call knowledge graph. So what Glean gets to learn about all the subjective ways or idiosyncrasies of your organization. That is not just like bits and bytes in your data store, but the derived understanding of what project names mean, what acronyms mean, how one team relates to another, a given employee, what are the formal or informal belongings the employee has to different offices, site locations, teams, etc. So the magical buildup of that knowledge graph takes care of a lot of the idiosyncrasy you would expect from a large enterprise. And it is so well ingrained in the core product that the product starts working for even the largest enterprises, despite all their custom bespoke needs. That's like one aspect. And the second aspect, and we'll get into that, I think, deeper, is the whole notion of agents. It is actually a very versatile way for these large enterprises to take Glean, take the core product, get a lot of daily value from it, but then deepen its impact by customizing what Glean does for each employee, each function, or the whole business units. So I think earlier you asked about some examples, right? If we take a modern enterprise, let's say 10, 20,000 employees, they start using Glean Search and Assistant seamlessly from day one. Thanks to Knowledge Graph, Glean gets to answer hundreds of different varieties of questions, use cases across, let's say, sales, engineering, IT, customer service, security, HR. And as the employees get onboarded to Glean and they develop the habits of using Glean, they start noticing, hey, I can go beyond these everyday horizontal use cases. I can actually get my team to operate with AI more. But in order to do that, I have to give more custom instructions to Glean. I have to get Glean to follow a set of instructions, a set of steps. Sometimes these steps need to be highly deterministic. So I'll give you some example. Finance teams, they love using Glean for everyday questions, like, hey, what is our churn risk on our newest cohort of customers? But then they start noticing that they can customize Glean deeper for more finance use cases, like, hey, I want to improve financial planning with Glean. No single company does financial planning in a like horizontally in a generic way, right? Every company has their own flair of doing financial planning. So then they start onboarding to what we call Glean agents, where they can say, hey, I am almost building a different Glean assistant, but I want to supply all the instructions to it so that it behaves just like my coworker. It is as if I am hiring a financial analyst or a planner, and I am educating or training this hire to act in a certain way. Or accelerate financial reporting so that the next time the company is doing the board meeting, they are actually cutting down the time required to put together all the financial artifacts and the closing of the quarter a few days earlier than what they are used to. So we kind of enable the companies to operate at two levels: the core product, search and assistant, where every employee gets to see the value, and then the agents platform, where again, departments like finance or legal or operations or engineering can take the core Glean assistant and customize it in a wide variety of rich ways to conform to their specific business processes. Did this make sense?
Yeah, no, that does make sense. And how does your maybe on a practical side, I'm just imagining as a company myself, like how do you get the information from the backlog of current things to kind of get piped into Glean? I'm guessing it's RAG oriented or something to that effect.
Yeah, love it.
Okay.
So I will say Glean was one of the few companies that put the R in RAG, maybe for our audience, like RAG
the R in
standing
RAG,
for retrieval-augmented generation, right?
Yes.
without retrieval, generation had a lot of, let's say, deviations or hallucinations. And I won't say Glean invented reg per se, but it is one of the most beautiful and impactful implementations of how the raw horsepower of LLMs get to work with the company data and all the company knowledge and idiosyncrasies that get to run the business for that company. So when we started doing like creating this reg architecture, as you might also recall, this was a few years ago now, the context windows were quite small. And at the time, the discussion was, hey, do we need reg? Why don't we train an LLM based on company information or fine-tune an LLM? I think that's where the impetus of this whole thing started. And we quickly ran into this very clear, let's say, boundary or obstacle. The moment you take an LLM, let's say you have the resources to train or fine-tune a large language model with company data, and you supply in that training, let's say, some corpus of company data, now you are losing something incredibly important, which is all the permissions and governance on that data. Because the moment you fine-tune an LLM with company data, the LLM will no longer have any idea whether Dimitri, the employee, should access certain data about the company's strategy or salary or HR practices versus Emrecan, the other employee. Now you have the same LLM using the same data and then using that data to answer anybody's requests, not knowing who should have access to what data. So the market clearly understood, hey, regardless of how cheap or effective fine-tuning or LLM or fine-tuning or training an LLM is, the right way to bring LLMs to the enterprise cannot be that, because no single company in this world can afford to lose the permissions enforcement and governance of the company data. It is not like using the open web internet where anybody can see anything. In the enterprise, there is a permission profile for every byte of data, right? So there was maybe one hugely important problem that we needed a graceful answer for, and then this is how reg came to life. But then over time, as we have observed, models ended up having larger and larger context windows.
Yeah.
So then the next challenge was, hey, is reg relevant anymore when you can supply all the documents you want through the context window interface into an LLM? And we are still landing on a very precarious problem, and it is the fact that you can supply more information doesn't mean that information is the highest quality information, right? So every additional line of a statement you supply to the LLM will actually try to use it. So in the end, the more information you supply, you might actually regress more towards the mean. You might get more consensus response, more generic response. And the way we create value in the enterprises is not by generating consensus responses. We actually generate very specific idiosyncratic answers as knowledge workers. So larger context seldom means a better answer, a higher quality answer, or a more precise answer. So that's why reg today is as important, if not more important, than what it was maybe about 2.5 years ago when it was actually invented by the industry and Glean.
Interesting. Okay, so when you're taking these, obviously reg, like you said, is kind of your bread and butter. What I am curious about, though, is just from a practical standpoint, the moving of all this data from a workspace. You know, a lot of people are using, could be just general PDFs and stuff like that for like SOPs and whatnot. Is there integrations with tools out there? Like, for example, if a company's kind of on G Suite, is there an easy way for them to move everything over from their G drive to Glean, and same goes for Microsoft? Or kind of what does that process look like? Because I can imagine for well-established companies, it could be kind of a hassle, right, to get everything in there.
Exactly. Look, that's a very opaque part of Glean, but maybe it is one of the most important pieces in Glean stack in how we engage with the customer. So some of the customers we are working with, they have more than 1 billion artifacts in their main document repositories. And they might have exabytes of data. So when they engage with Glean, actually nothing gets transferred over to Glean servers at all. So when we think about building Glean's index, there is no aspect of, let's say, copying the customer's data, replicating it, duplicating it, etc. Glean has a very lean, minimalist way of understanding a company's document corpus or knowledge corpus while the data sits where they are, right? So you gave the example of, let's say, G Drive. We can talk about Microsoft 365 or all the Slack conversations and channels. Glean never creates a copy of it, right? What Glean does is it has what we call continuous integration into these data sources through what we call connectors. And we create an index of every conversation, every document, along with the permission profile of these conversations, channels, documents, etc., such that Glean has an understanding of what this document is about, but also it starts building the relationship between one piece of document in G Drive to a particular Slack conversation that might be about a related project or the same project. And then Glean focuses on maintaining this relationship understanding of different documents and in different data stores. And the crucial part of it is a company's knowledge corpus is a living and breathing organism. So if we were to make a copy today, in a day or in a week, the relevance would already go down because we go back to our documents, conversations, we add stuff, we remove stuff, we change the permission so that a document that you have access to today, you might lose access to it the moment the document's out or decide, say, I'm going to make it private, for example. So Glean's magic comes from this a very lean, minimalist approach to always be in touch with the company's document corpus without creating any duplication or replication of it. This also is extremely crucial for the customers we serve because Glean doesn't become yet another security attack vector or risk. So whatever documents or proprietary information you have, that stays within your cybersecurity guardrails, within your own cloud. Glean doesn't ingest something off of your cloud. Every Glean instance is a single tenant instance. I don't know if this is going into too much detail, but managing the security risk profile of our customers is of paramount importance. This is why Glean invented this highly opaque but magical way of creating and updating an index continuously without duplicating or carrying over any of your actual data outside the boundaries of your cloud.
That's very smart. No, that makes sense to me. So you're saying that basically it uses the connector to have a continuous sort of like stream of, it's essentially using the current things that exist via making it their own sort of real-time RAG repositories.
Yes, very well
through
said.
the connection. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Very smart. Yeah, no, because I could imagine where that would be a concern for everybody. It's like, oh, well, I'm connecting it, and then I'm like essentially re-uploading everything to another company, and yeah, I could see where they would get people get.
Exactly. Maybe if I may, Dimitri, there's also the other side of the medallion. I focused a lot on the defensive posture of it, like why it is important to.
No, but yeah, talk about like how it helps to perform better and makes it give great answers and whatnot. That because obviously that's the point, right?
Yes. So let's think about the following as well. In this conversation so far, for example, I haven't shared any of my screen, etc. But as importantly, if not more, is the relevance and freshness angle of things. So as you can easily imagine, in a company, we create so much content. And some of this content is duplicate, and they become outdated, stale very quickly. So when you ask a simple question, there might be hundreds of different documents where on the paper, each one of these documents could be used to help answer that question, right? So the challenge is as much about deciding which document or documents are the authoritative sources to answer, which document is the freshest, which document should be used, and which document should be ignored. So what Glean takes advantage of is all these signals about engagement, collaboration, and freshness. So imagine you wrote a document or you created a slide deck today. Glean will say, hey, Dimitri is an expert in product roadmap, and he created a product roadmap deck. So I am already thinking that, hey, this is a let's say, a highly reputable document. But if you don't make any updates to that document, to that slide deck, if you don't present it in any of the Google Meet or Zoom sessions, Glean will also consider the lack of those signals. So it will understand which decks are getting more comments from different collaborators. Who are these collaborators? Are they product managers or unrelated people? Is this deck getting presented in different meetings? And all these activity signals, Glean is also using them to understand freshness, ranking, relevance, and authoritativeness, so that the next time you say, hey, what is our product roadmap? Glean can decide across 57 different versions of product roadmap decks, which one is the right one to show you. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Yeah, I think, it almost feels like a big issue that you could be solving in general is general lack of organization inside of companies, or lack of source of truth within companies, because everyone has so many different pieces of collateral made. So to that, I would just say, I'm practically understanding how one could ask questions of the assistant and whatnot and get answers. Well, a lot of people are happy with that, and that's awesome. What are you doing necessarily on the agentic side of things, whether it being proactive or performing tasks with that information? Because I could imagine, you mentioned sales and marketing earlier, people maybe do the same process over and over again. What does that look like from an agentic standpoint?
Yeah. So I want to take a multi-step approach here, because the AI adoption or maturity journey of different customers, different enterprises, they are in different parts of this chart. Like
yes.
We are all learning it on a daily basis. Some of our customers are so advanced that they are surfacing us the problems that I barely know about. And I love learning through our customers what we should solve next. But as you can imagine, some customers are just saying, hey, what are these agents for? What are some good agent ideas we should adopt now, right? So my prerogative at Glean is, how do I push the boundaries, push the frontiers of my most advanced customers, but also make sure that innovative thinking trickles down to other customers that are early in the maturity curve. So here is a huge insight that I feel very fortunate to deal with over the last 6 months. Some of our customers, they end up building their first agents. So for example, in the world of sales, many of our customers build agents around similar business objectives. How do I increase the win rate? How do I increase pipeline generation of my salespeople? How do I increase net new meetings I have with prospects? Accelerating time to deal close, accelerating time to address prospect objections. The first few agents we see our customers creating in the realm of sales, in B2B sales, are around these ideas, right? And when a customer goes from, hey, I have no agents, to, hey, I now have the first 1, 2, 3 agents, that is already a moment of truth. All of a sudden they realize, hey, I have this agent that can stay consistent across different salespeople. They can use these agents for a wide variety of prospects and their objections. But also these agents leverage the upside of the LLM, the stochasticity. So these agents are very versatile. So I will say the big moment of truth with Glean agents, and I think this holds true for the broader agents movement in the industry, is agents bring the right combination of determinism, like the traditional software paradigm is determinism, and software does the same thing again and again, with the huge upside of stochasticity that LLMs bring to the table. So when we think about an agent, it is really the right combination of how much determinism you want to have with the stochasticity, like dynamic decision making that you don't need to codify. But we are talking about one agent, let's say for sales. Once the enterprise realizes the value of an agent, guess what happens next? They build tens of agents, hundreds of agents. So all of a sudden, let's say you and I are employees in a 10,000 employee organization. We go from, hey, I had Glean Assistant I was using to generate answers for everything. And now there are hundreds of agents that are specialized in different things. So how do I remember which agent to go to get my job done, right? Maybe there are actually multiple agent versions that might get the same thing done, like digesting, like creating a digest of what happens in a Slack channel when you were away. So many of these customers that realize the value of agents and start scaling their agents investments, they come back to the table with this amazingly valuable insight that, again, I feel very fortunate to have worked on with the team, and that is, how do you maintain a singular user interface where the end user, the Dimitri, the employee, doesn't need to remember or recall whether there was an agent for it? Like if you recall the amazing Apple marketing slogan for the App Store, hey, there is an app for that.
Yeah.
Right? With the world of agents, saying that there's an agent for it doesn't cut it, because people don't want to sieve through pages and pages of different agents to remember, hey, this is the agent that can do the work done. So increasingly with our more advanced customers that get to value with agents, they have hundreds of agents across sales, engineering, marketing, product, operations, where the onus becomes the Glean assistant can match user intent, what the user is trying to do right now, to the best agent available, where that agent, mind you, might have been built on Glean, but it might be a third-party agent. That is, there's another aspect of Glean that maybe we'll get to discuss. But our customers don't need to build all their agents on Glean. They can actually build agents elsewhere, but Glean Assistant becomes that brain, that orchestrator, that singular interface to say, Dimitri is trying to achieve this, and there is the perfect agent to help Dimitri with that. I'm going to invoke that agent. Dimitri doesn't need to know whether that agent exists, whether that agent is built on Glean or on Snowflake or on Salesforce or on Microsoft Copilot platform. Glean can route the right intent to the right agent in runtime.
Interesting. Could you walk into that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So let's think about the following. As it happens, at Glean, we recently closed our performance review cycle. And if you think about companies, every company without exception have some cycle to review performance of the employees, to promote people, to give feedback to people, to reorganize, etc. Right? Let's say this happens every 6 months, every 3 months, whatever. So the moment a manager wants to do performance review, the manager needs to lean into skills that she hasn't practiced over the last 3-6 months.
3-6
so
months.
Performance review is a very infrequent thing to do, right? So without Glean, for example, performance review has been a very manual process. With Glean, many forward-thinking AI-first managers started coming up with different ways of prompting Glean to generate a very rigorous evaluation of what their direct reports have delivered, have worked on, have shined, what the improvement areas for their direct reports could be. So this is how, for example, in a very bottoms-up grassroots way, AI-first managers started building agents in many of our customers to help with the performance reviews. Then the next cycle, the HR department realizes, hey, many of people managers are actually using their own ways of doing this. But guess what? As HR, the department would like to ensure fairness, rigor, a common way of doing things across all managers. So then HR department might lean in and say, hey, I'm going to build a very rigorous, let's say, performance review agent so that every IC can be evaluated against the same or similar rubric, as opposed to managers creating different flavors of performance reviews. So then that is the next step. But then some companies might say, hey, you know what? We already have built a performance review agent because most of our HR information lives on, let's say, Workday for the sake of example. So then they would tell us, hey, Glean, we want to run performance review with the help of Glean, but we don't want to build our performance review agent from scratch on Glean. Can we bring the agents we built elsewhere? So in this case, let's say it is built on Workday. And if so, how can we bring it? So then the solution there is Glean Assistant today can integrate with, just like the connectors we discussed earlier, where Glean is indexing information from different data sources. Here, it is the opposite way of moving or interacting with third-party data stores, where Glean is the interface, but Glean recognizes that there is a performance review agent in Workday, and when a manager asks to create a performance review write-up of a direct report, Glean matches that intent to the, let's say, metadata, to the description of what that agent does, and say, okay, I'm going to invoke this Workday agent, which is a third-party agent, and supply all the necessary information to that Workday agent so that it can get to work. And it invokes the Workday agent. The agent might work on whatever it is supposed to do and bring the response back, and then Glean displays that response to the end user. So this is how Glean maintains a singular commitment to a IT stack or the agent stack, where again, the core solve here is, as an employee, I shouldn't need to remember which agent or platform I need to go to solve my problem. I can tell Glean what I'm trying to do, and Glean will connect the dots to the right agent, to the right platform, and then invoke that agent and get that job done.
Wow, that's very impressive. Because I feel like a lot of the effort that people would put in here is figuring out, okay, well, I know I have an agent for this. But like you said, unlike the App Store, no one wants to kind of like sort through necessarily all of the different agents that exist. So that's pretty impressive. How many companies do you guys currently have as customers?
About I think 500 to 600, somewhere in that range.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. So yeah, that's. And is there any specific industry that you feel like is like the highest, like that you work with? Like, I'm just curious, trying to think like who's adopting this, right? Because this is a question that I often ask: is like who are you finding is like most adopting these products, and like what kind of impact has it had practically on their? You mentioned earlier about their employment, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I will answer in two ways. One, who is adopting, and like the companies that have more bifurcated IT stacks, right? The companies that are using different software solutions as best of breed solutions, as opposed to, let's say, companies saying, hey, I will build all my IT stack in just one mega vendor. So those companies tend to see the visceral Glean value much faster, because it's not very surprising. The more, let's say, different types of software you use, then your data, your information is bifurcated in different silos more. So they tend to experience the pain points more often. So it is kind of like maybe after the fact, it sounds obvious, but then this also means Glean really matches what we have been seeing with the SaaS industry over the last 10, 15 years, where really like the modern enterprise went from, hey, I am using everything from Microsoft as my IT stack to, hey, I will use Microsoft Word, but I will pair it with Zoom for my conferencing, and I will use Salesforce as my CRM, and I might use a startup like Notion for like cross-project collaboration. So there is a clear movement in the way enterprises are putting their IT stack together over the last 10 years or so. The great unbundling of the enterprise software, and Glean has been unsurprisingly delivering a like great solution to that unbundling. So that part, the more the more software you use as part of your IT stack, then Glean brings the magic faster and more viscerally to you. Maybe that's the obvious side, but I will also share the non-obvious side. Many of our maybe listeners here might expect that Glean's core customer base is Silicon Valley tech enterprises.
Yeah, sure.
And that is actually not the case. So for every tech or engineering-driven organization that we have as our customer, we have a non-tech, traditional, retail, manufacturing-driven organization. So this is maybe something that I really enjoy, and many of outsiders don't get to realize with Glean, that we are not dominated by tech-first software-oriented enterprises, but many traditional businesses, manufacturing-driven businesses, get tremendous value out of Glean.
You know, it's interesting. I think there's probably not a lot of people who are considering that. Sure, knowledge workers and tech and etc. would probably benefit from these a lot and might be first to adopt. But even in manufacturing, there is a quote knowledge work that ends up occurring, and they probably, no offense to knowledge working companies in general, probably understand efficiency, and how stringent one could and should be, even more so than maybe knowledge work, because the manufacturing companies have over the last couple hundred years essentially done this to, a ridiculous level with the physical components that they're working with. So that's actually, that's an interest. Yeah. I wouldn't have thought of that, but yeah, it's almost like when I said earlier, horizontal, funny enough, I still thought of like, is it tech? Is it finance? Is it none of the list in my head was manufacturing, more physical. So exactly. Wow, awesome. Yeah. Is there is there anything that we're kind of coming close to the end of the episode? I do always like to ask this question as well. How do you feel like your product is going to help businesses in the future in regards to kind of the hiring, whether it be process or lack of need of hiring? And how do you feel like it's going to impact like the job landscape moving forward? Because I feel like agents, for a lot of people, more and more as it's come out as a phrase and understanding, people get that like these are things that can do tasks, and people generally do tasks, so they're worried about that in the job landscape. So what do you feel like your product and other products kind of mean for the job landscape in the next 5 to 10 years?
So I'll answer, I think, in two parts. Number one, if you think about any employee and their first meaningful interaction or adoption experience of AI in the workplace, Glean plays such an incredible foundational role with it. Because like I know hundreds of millions of people wearing our consumer hats, we are interacting with a bunch of AI solutions like ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, etc. But at work, connecting the dots between how can AI help me deliver more value, become a better employee, there is a big chasm there. And then we talked about the reasons of that chasm. It is security, it is access to data, etc. So if you imagine the employee of a Glean customer, Glean plays a hugely foundational role at bringing AI for the first time to how an employee uses AI to get better work or to get their work done faster. So Glean has a mission here, and many of our buyers, our champions, the CIOs that sign the Glean contract, they think of Glean as either one of their major bets or the major bet itself to drive AI adoption in the enterprise with their employees. So if you think about the future hires, like the future of the job marketplace, I will venture to say that the candidates, the talent that knows how to bring AI into their own craft, whether they are doing manufacturing work, sales, finance, engineering, legal work, but bringing AI to your craft so that you are more creative, you are more productive, then those employees will be highly sought after. So how those employees get to learn how to be that employee, that AI-enabled, AI-native employee, Glean is playing a hugely important role today, because you get to use Glean in a safe and everyday environment, and you get to build agents for yourself. You get to build agents that your teammates adopt, that give you feedback. You can iterate on these agents in a highly zero coding required, let's say, safe and productive way. So I will say that like Glean contributes to that mission of making employees a lot more AI forward, AI native, or AI enabled. This may be the crucial aspect Glean plays a role in today's talent transformation.
Well, that was awesome. I think it's funny. This episode kind of flew by. I can't even believe that we're actually at 50 minutes, and I'm a little bit disappointed, to be honest, with how fast the time went, because I would love to keep talking. So if you do we have a few more minutes? We could actually keep talking if you have a few more minutes. If not, okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, we can probably run it till a couple more minutes. So with your kind of growth over the last few years, what is the main goal and vision of what this company can do for people, right? Because obviously we've seen such growth and such improvement in so many different ways in the agentic world. What is, like, I don't want to say the final goal, but like the current vision look like for the next couple of years of what a company is going to be able to accomplish with Glean?
Yeah, love it. So maybe I'll try to answer in two ways. I'll go back to a framing that I love using, and it's about the craft we bring to our work. Again, regardless of the function, seniority, etc., we do. Like the work is actually like what we put in every day. It ends up being our craft. So I am call me an AI maximalist, but I sincerely and deeply believe, regardless of our function, not just engineers or product managers, but any function, with AI, we will get to do better craft. So our creativity will increase, right? And so AI is not just about time saving or getting tasks done faster. It is actually about craft. If you get to do more insightful podcast episodes, because with AI, you can prepare for your next episode like better, deeper, ask more insightful questions, etc. This is really the core of the craft. And I do believe AI will help each one of us to do our craft better. And with craft, the productivity of the enterprises will increase. They will ship innovation faster. They will ship innovation that they wouldn't have thought about before, thanks to the increased craft of every employee. And then this is going to lift all the boats, deciding like where the lion's share of impact will be. Does that make sense?
That's a very good, actually, that's something that not a lot of companies are talking about. The reason I say that is because I feel like there's focus always, from what I've heard, on getting more done and or getting stuff done so that you don't have to do as much as a employee or company, right? And I mean, the employee would have to do less and the robot does more. So therefore there's like a time increase on the person to get back more time for leisure, right? But I actually haven't heard anybody bring forward the point. The work could just be better, right? And not better in the sense of some sort of I guess, pragmatic concept when, you know, you hear business talk about better. You're saying, because this is a term that is not used often in business, but I do think can be used for it. You're saying that it will lead to more work being what is essentially craft, right? And this concept, I believe, there's a couple of books I remember reading on this back when I was in my self-improvement productivity book phase. But there was a book that specifically talked about work being craft rather than being work. And it also, I think, ends up leading to almost like a compounding form of productivity in a sense, right? You take somebody like me who the last thing I want to do is spend a bunch of different time clicking around trying to find ways to ask better questions, right? It's sure, some might like doing the nitty gritty of things, but most don't like doing the nitty gritty of things. They'd rather do the craftful type of things, right? Like the person who does the sales calls would rather do the sales calls than get the people on the sales calls. You know what I'm saying? Or figure out how to do better sales calls. And that's something that it's kind of lost on a lot of us in this race to get more done with AI agents. We could make the work better and better. Exactly. and more craftful. That's a very good point.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
I'm loving that it resonates with you. Like you said, yeah. I think the market looks at the more obvious things, where, hey, with AI, we get to do things faster, save costs, reduce the time, etc. It's of course like less obvious to think, hey, the craft level will increase, like the creativity will increase. But I think we are going to get there. I'm already seeing like many different examples from different industries or job functions along those lines. So I am quite hopeful, and I have proof that convinces me.
Yeah, and there's no reason that we can't move more towards that type of environment, I think. Because to be quite frank, I think there's, a lot of focus on people's time savings and whatnot in order. And that it's funny though, that leisure component I was talking about with like time saved on work is at some point you talk to anybody who's retired, like outside of like actually like maybe 10% of people, most people are like, yeah, I mean, they kind of like sputter out. Like the joke goes for middle-aged men in the Midwest, like, I can only golf so many days a week. I do kind of miss work. Right. And the reason for that is the craft that we would wish to live in for ourselves is something that everyone does yearn for, right? I wake up, I run my own company, so I kind of have a high stress component, but also I do have the thing that others don't, maybe in a lot of jobs where people, I think there's actually not as much of a correlation between work volume and negative feelings about work as people might think. It's more so in line with whether you actually find value in what you're doing. And I think when we get more towards that craft deep layer, that would be the case. Because somebody who's, I used to work in paid ads, and about a decade ago, maybe more, there was not like bidding algorithms to optimize for paid per click. You literally had to manually bid on keywords, and you could purchase keywords and these sorts of things. These were not edifying things, right? This is not edifying whatsoever. Data entry is not edifying, right? So when we move from that to something that we can be proud of, and it feels more like something that we're building that means something, I think if that's something that you guys are striving for, that's a beautiful thing.
Love it.
Yeah,
I'm going to use some of your narratives in my future conversations with customers and prospects as well.
Well, you should. So, no, I'm just kidding.
Beautiful. Yeah.
No, I really no. I think it's true. Like, I love what I do. I'm stressed because I work for myself, and it's not like the longest. Like people who start their own company and they've reached a certain level of success, I'd imagine have less stress, and there's like different reasons why you're at different stress levels and running a business. Same goes for when you're at a job, right? Funny enough, everybody the first week enjoys work for some reason, like at a new job. And it's because it's this new exciting thing. You're thinking of all the cool things that you could do. And then some people get pigeonholed into like a specific monotonous task. And then the reality of said job isn't quite what they imagined. But if you can help move more people in the direction of, it being what they'd imagine, it's probably it's probably the way to go, So, all right. Well, what'd you say?
No, I was going to chime in, like in a very personal and recent way. Just this podcast, by the way, I enjoyed this a lot. I don't know, we should do this weekly. But like, ask me how I prepared for this podcast. And I actually used Glean a lot. Like your previous interviews with Lior and Ellen, I actually used Glean's AI to better prepare. And I do think that improved my craft. Like, I don't know if you liked the podcast, but whatever I am here, without Glean, I would have done worse. But the thing is, it's not a time saving for me. Like, how can I be more insightful or concise or sharper with my communication? How do I adapt to your communication style? How you want to run your podcast? Glean helped me prepare better, or AI helped me prepare better. And that I consider part of my craft. So I think the opportunities are endless to improve craft by the use of AI rather than, again, hey, help me cut the time to prepare for this meeting or for this podcast or the interview. So I think I'm quite excited and optimistic about the future of AI in the workplace and for us employees.
Absolutely. No, I totally feel that. So with that being said, my last question would just be, what necessarily would be the final thing you'd like to plug? I'm guessing it's Glean.com. If I had to guess anything that you're interested in plugging to close this one out.
Let's go with that. And we are hiring across product design and data. I mean, across all functions. But AI first product folks or design or data folks, come find me on LinkedIn. Could be another plug.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you being on the show. Everyone, please go check out Glean on their website, LinkedIn, all the socials. We'll have links down below. Thank you so much for being on this episode. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.